This week on the Retirement Quick Tips podcast, I'm talking about navigating markets in turmoil. And today I want to address a very important question and one that I think is probably on your mind right now. And that is it going to get worse? I'm recording this on April 9th, 6 days before it actually goes live. I don't know what's going to happen. I was actually going to record this on Tuesday, April 8th, which was one of the worst 4-day periods for stocks ever. And then my schedule didn't allow for that. So I ended up recording on April 9th after the third best day in the S&P 500 ever. So a lot can change in a day, a lot can change in a week, especially in the stock market. But we've seen a record-setting drop in the stock market. In fact, in just the first 2 days following the tariff announcement, so the tariffs were announced on Wednesday, April 2nd, then on the 3rd and the 4th, Thursday and Friday, the S&P 500 shed $6.6 trillion in just those first 2 days. Much of the news media has been in full meltdown mode, saying that the tariffs, they're all but certainly going to plunge the US into a deep, dark recession. And frankly, I'm not sure about that. Okay, so this is not a political comment. Nobody knows what's going to happen. Trump's style of negotiating is not for the faint of heart. Obviously, we've seen that. But there's an interesting article from Reuters that was published on Friday, April 4th, so right after the tariffs were announced. And I think it presents a pretty balanced view because what I'm noticing in talking with clients is that if you lean left, if you don't like Trump, then this is a disaster. And then the clients who I talk to who like Trump, and I've talked to lots of clients over the last several days, all across the political spectrum. The ones who like Trump, who are confident that his tactics are going to work, they see no problem whatsoever with what is going on. Contrast that to people who don't like Trump, didn't vote for him, lean left. This is actually the first time ever in my experience in working with clients where your political affiliation and whether or not you like Trump influences your pessimism or optimism in the current scenario. I find that very interesting. I don't know what that says about how politically divided we are or just Trump and his personality in general. You either hate him or you love him. There's not many people in between. But I think there's an important point to be made here, which is about whether or not it gets worse. And I think we have to take a fairly balanced view of the tariffs. Will it get much worse if the tariffs as currently proposed go into effect as is? Yes. But the market rebounded today dramatically as I record this because there's a 90-day pause with some caveats to that, giving some more time to negotiate and bring down the tariffs on both sides. But this article by Reuters is called Nowhere to Hide. Trump tariffs leave trading partners cornered. It says U.S. trading partners have few good options in their trade war with President Donald Trump. Hit by 10 to 15% tariffs on their exports to the world's dominant economic superpower, most lack the firepower to hit back or the political will to slug it out. This is why the vast majority of trading partners did not immediately retaliate and indicated a readiness to negotiate a face-saving compromise with Trump. Even among those that have taken countermeasures, the door was left ajar to talks. For a world already deep in state debt after years of pandemic-era stimulus spending, it will be tough for some to find the subsidies and other financial aid required to stave off economic growth downgrades, profit warnings, and layoffs. And that right there, I think, hits to the core of the issue. The U.S. is in a stronger negotiating position. Trump knows it. Everybody knows it. Now, is Trump playing with fire? Yes. Could this not end well and send the economy into a recession? Yes. Am I personally worried about a recession? Definitely. But the all but certain proclamation that the tariffs are bad doesn't take into account that this is all clearly a negotiating tactic and that the most likely scenario is tariffs will be rolled back over the coming weeks and months as countries come to the table. And every other country out there needs the US consumer to buy their exports. And so they need us often more than we need them. So the US does have the upper hand here, and Trump obviously knows that. Depending on how broad the tariffs are and how long they last and how much the tariffs are, that continues to evolve. So since this tariff policy continues to evolve, it really is too early to determine if the economy will tip over into a recession And until we know more about these negotiations and how they're going to shake out, I think you're going to see a lot of volatility in the markets. Now, there's opportunity in that, which I will address later in this week. But for today, to address the question, is it going to get worse? Maybe. You're likely to see continued volatility because even now that there's this 90-day pause, it kind of pushes out that uncertainty even longer. So in some ways, it's obviously a good thing because it gives negotiating time for countries and for the Trump administration. But companies are going to be reluctant to hire and spend and invest and continue with business as usual as long as there's a huge question mark over what the tariff environment is going to look like. I think with that uncertain environment, you're definitely going to have volatility. Will it get worse from here? I think that there's a good chance that the market will struggle and climb this wall of worry, or maybe not. Climbing a wall of worry is this phrase in investing where the markets tend to do well despite constant reasons not to invest. There's always a reason to worry, but markets can do well. So I think that you will see a lot of volatility. I don't necessarily think that it's going to be a doomsday scenario. Now, we shall see when we get to the other side in 90 days from now what that looks like. And we just have to take it one day at a time until then. All right, that's it for today. Thank you so much for listening. Come on back tomorrow where I'm going to talk about if we do go into a bear market, if we go into a recession, can you handle that? It's a very important question to ask yourself because this reprieve that we have with markets kind of settling back down and calming down after the initial downdraft is a very important time to assess your risk, assess your allocation, and make some adjustments if necessary. So I'll talk more about that tomorrow. My name is Ashley Michike, and this is the Retirement Quick Tips Podcast.